What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Tape. TJ Wengert here with you, the lead NFL draft analyst and college football analyst for 32 Beat Writers. And today I present to you my newest two-round 2026 NFL mock draft. We now know the Indiana Hoosiers are our national champions. Congratulations to all the Hoosier fans and, of course, the players and, of course, the quarterback we're going to talk about going number one overall here in just a moment. But also, really fun weekend of divisional games, have a better idea of the back half of the first round draft order. Some of those teams are now locked into place. And also, since the last time we recorded, we've got more head coaching openings. So we'll talk about that throughout the course of this video as well. Next week, we should have a mock. It won't necessarily be in the middle of the week. It won't be on a Tuesday like it is right now. It'll be in the later half of the week, either Thursday evening or Friday. And that is because next week, Z, Matt, and I are all going down to the Senior Bowl. My second year getting to go cover the Senior Bowl with 32. So definitely keep an eye out for all of our coverage, both on Twitter, here on the YouTube channel. We'll do daily breakdowns after every day of practice. And, of course, I'm also going to be doing written material, which leads me into right now is a great time to become a subscriber over at 32beatwriters.com. Definitely want you to subscribe here on the YouTube channel. That's where a lot of my work lives. But we are also trying to beef up and boost out this website. We've done a lot over the last 6 months to a year. And to back that up, we want to give you the month of January for free with promo code Senior Bowl. That means next week when we go down, not only are you getting all the video stuff, what I'm putting out on Twitter, I will have exclusive takes and clips that I send to just the Discord. You're going to be a part of that. If you want to communicate with me, talk prospects, that's the place to do it, Discord. I'm doing live prospect breakdowns once a week. You're going to have to become a member, going to have to subscribe to be able to do that and interact with us on that level. And, of course, next week I'm also going to be doing written materials. Not going to be at my full-time job during the day, so I have more opportunities to do stuff like the written write-ups that not everyone wants to watch a video. They want it in written form. Next week, you're going to get some of that, but you got to be a subscriber for it. So definitely want to join. It's free. You can't beat free. So go take advantage of this promo code and then join us throughout the rest of the offseason. That's what 32 Beat Writers is here for, to make you a king of knowing what went down in the offseason. So definitely go subscribe over at the website. All right, deep breath. All that said and done, let's jump into this mock draft. I know that's why you're here. And we start with the Vegas Raiders going Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza goes for the trifecta, right? Heisman winner, national champion, and number one overall pick. I mean, good time to be Fernando Mendoza. And even as a Notre Dame fan, I don't love seeing another in-state school win the Natty, but he's got a great story, and he's had a hell of a season, so I was really kind of pulling for him. No disrespect to Miami, but just a really cool story, especially considering the game being played in his old stomping grounds and Miami not recruiting him right out of high school, all that sort of fun stuff. So credit to Mendoza. Good time to be Fernando Mendoza, to say the least. And opportunity to turn a new leaf here for the Vegas Raiders as they continue to search for a head coach as of this recording. And then that takes us to the Jets here too. And this is where, like, with no Dante Moore, man, this gets really tricky really quick. But I'm going to go with Ruben Bain. Now, the Jets currently last year, with what we have with, data, this has come from Sumer Brain to be specific. But the Jets ranked 19th in stunts twist usage. That's something I want to see more out of whoever gets Ruben Bain, because there's going to be some alignment versatility inside out. But specifically, when he gets a full head of steam and then the bend he gets at 275 pounds, he can become a real weapon on those gamesmanship type of plays that you can have up front. So whether it's on the edge, interior defensive line, I think the Jets could use some additional pieces there. Bain, I think, could be kind of a two birds, one stone approach. And then specifically, if he is the pick here too, I would just implore Aaron Glenn, got to get some more gamesmanship going on the defensive line, because I think stunts and twists could be a huge way of taking Ruben Bain from being a pretty good pro into a guy who puts up bonkers numbers. So really like the prospect. No quarterback to take here, so I'm going to go with the next. And he's not necessarily the next highest graded player on my board, but given he's an edge rusher who could also rush from the inside, it makes it easy to get him on the field. He's a high-impact run defender as well. So a lot of easy things to make Ruben Bain a high-floor, easy selection here at number 2 for the New York Jets. And then here at 3 for the Arizona Cardinals, want to do something different. We went Sonny Styles last time out. And again, we're in this awkward spot of, like, who's the best non-quarterback to take? And truthfully, it's going to come down to either Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, or the guy I'm going to have here for the Arizona Cardinals. And as of right now, my grade is highest for Jeremiah Love. So Love may end up being the number 2 overall player on my board, which is not something that happens often for a running back, but I have given him the blue chip label. So because of that, position value won't move him down on my board solely because of position value. And frankly, it's kind of, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Maybe it's Arvell Reese just for the pass rush upside here for the Cardinals. But Styles gives you a transcendent linebacker that they just don't have. So you can't really hate that pick. It's just a linebacker at 3. You don't love the value there. Same is true here for Jeremiah Love. No Cardinals fans can look at this and be like, that's a bad football player. I don't want that guy. That's not the case here. It's more about, God, at 3, could we just go ahead and take CeCe Moinoa, go get a tackle? and maybe he's not as elite of a player as Jeremiah Love, but then we have tackle bookends, and that will be something we explore in future mocks. But in today's mock, we're gonna overhaul like Arizona backfield, right? Kyler Murray is not going to be back next year. Drew Petzing's now the OC in Detroit. They're looking for a new head coach in Arizona anyways. I think it's time to overhaul the backfield. And yes, the offensive line's not perfect, but you do have a stalwart at left tackle in Paris Johnson Jr. So a little bit of a concern of like the Raiders last year with GT, where you took this running back early. Do you have the O-line to block it up for him? But I think with a good free agency period, you could at least get that Cardinals O-line back to average status and really open up a lot of things for Jeremiah Love. Also, his improved involvement or just really he became more involved this year in the Raiders passing game. Using him more as a pass catcher makes it even easier to justify the selection here at number 3 overall. All right, then that takes us to the Tennessee Titans at number 4 overall. This is where I'm going to have Arvell Reese come off the board. Him or Styles make a lot of sense. They both need a linebacker of the future. I just think this is a team that also needs pass rush upside. So I decided to lean towards Reese here, but really it comes down to, again, those two in Love, all in the running for me right now as the best non-quarterback in this class. And it's just going to come down to prototypical linebacker in Styles or the mystery box with Arvell Reese. It could be, it's like Family Guy memes. It's a mystery box. It could even be a boat. But here I'm going to go with the mystery box for the Titans. And part of that's also like Cedric Gray, I thought was a really solid player this year, still in his rookie contract. So I think the pass rush juice that Reese presents, and just you're not going to get a lot of pass rush value out of Cedric Gray, I think that becomes a nice 1-2 punch. And I also think maybe Reese as an edge rusher is something you continue to explore. And this Titans team is still really figuring out as a part of this second year for Mike Bergonzi. They're still in a rebuild period, so they've got some time to figure out the best role for Arvell Reese. So timeline wise, I think it also works out well. To the New York Giants, I'm going to actually do something a little different here. I'm going to have Cornell Tate be the first receiver off the board. I think it's going to be close between him and Tyson, man. And if Tate's wide receiver 1 off the board with Tyson's medicals, I can't knock it whatsoever. But I do think the Giants need a bona fide ball winner, X receiver. Neighbors can play X, but he is so much more dynamic, getting him in motion at the start of the snap. So let's get him in Z. Or frankly, he had a ton of success at LSU on those slot fades. So, Jackson Dart can throw a pretty deep ball. So lining up Neighbors in the slot, maybe getting an advantageous mismatch right, maybe the team's weakest corners in the nickel, and just let Neighbors feast against that and let Dart throw him those slot fades. Those two should have a ton of success there too. So I think this is the move that maximizes Neighbors, gives you a lot of flexibility, but also gives you a bona fide ball winner at the X on the sideline. That type of, go-to, what we think of as an alpha number 1, but they already have that in Neighbors, but like the guy who will do the dirty work, line up in the line of scrimmage, and then makes Neighbors that much more of a special player, really, and kind of frees him up to be that much more dangerous. And plus, we're talking about second year Jackson Dart. So just doubling down on that first round investment by throwing another first round receiver. Into the Cleveland Browns. This is where I'm going to have CeCe Moe come off the board. And really, he could go as high as 3 to the Arizona Cardinals. And it wouldn't necessarily shock me. The Browns are going to have to overhaul that offensive line. The first 2 picks here are going to be with that thinking in mind. And whether it's at right tackle or right guard, the Browns have got to find a long-term piece there. So it's going to be CeCe Moe. The conversation is going to be, how good do you think he is at guard versus how great do you think he'd be at tackle, and just weighing those two things out. For me, it's like he'll be a good tackle, but he could be an absolutely amazing guard. And it's just, where do you want to have that player lining up? But considering we might be 2 years removed from a whole new starting 5 in Cleveland up front, it's a luxury pick because you either got a really good right tackle, you got a kick-ass right guard for the future. So no matter what, now we know it fits in the long-term picture for that Browns offensive line. To the Washington Commanders, this is where I'm going to have Jordyn Tyson come off the board. A little bit of a risky pick considering this is a Commanders team that had Jaden get hurt, Terry battled injuries. Debo's going to be, at this point in his career, he's always going to be banged up to some degree. But I'm going to go Jordyn Tyson here for the home run swing. I think between free agency and the rest of this draft, we can get some defensive reinforcements to bolster that unit. The other glaring need on this roster is another receiver outside of Terry McLaurin. And Debo's still fun for the gadget and slot stuff. And he can still do some of that. But I think even this year you saw when Terry McLaurin goes down, Debo ain't a number 1. So you still want another guy in that room. And frankly, at Debo's age, making him a 3/gadget player sounds amazing. So Tyson, sharp route runner, has the size to play X receiver, which is probably best for McLaurin considering the injuries he had last year. And he's just not the biggest guy in and of itself. So this could be a move where Tyson becomes your X, T-Mac becomes the Z slot option. And then Debo, when he's on the field, he's probably going to be your slot. But you can interchange him and T-Mac in that role. So like this a ton, it's just going to come down to the medical and how comfortable you are with his injury history, considering it's not all in one spot. That's a little concerning for me. Just could be a guy who battles a lot of injuries. So it's going to be interesting to see the market really in general for Jordyn Tyson, but huge upside here for the Commanders. If this hits and a couple of tweaks on the defense, you can be right back into the mix of like one of the best teams in the NFC. No doubt about it. And Arizona State guy, always fun to throw one of those bones at Jay Daniels. Wasn't really in my mind, but it's kind of a fun story there. Then we get to pick number 8 for the New Orleans Saints. This is as high as I've had Peter Woods go in a long time. And it's really nothing against Peter Woods. I think he started to sail it in a little bit towards the end of the season, but this just wasn't the year where we got to see him take a leap forward as a pass rusher that we had kind of hoped. And I will say they already have another Clemson interior defensive lineman on that unit, in Brian Brzee, who I think almost kind of serves as the right complement for Peter Woods. Brzee, with the production he's had in his NFL career, it's been on the pass rush side. Woods, that's the TBD side. We don't really know what he's going to be as a pass rush to the next level. But what I'm willing to put my neck out on the line for is this guy's going to be a high floor run defender. Like, this guy is going to be around the league for 8 to 10 years because of what he does on early downs and specifically as a run defender. So I think just in and of itself, Woods, Brzee, 2 Clemson guys, they complement each other's strengths and weaknesses pretty well. But also, I'm iffy I'm going to be curious where I want to put Peter Woods in general in my overall big board, because Clemson's just got a run of that, where like these guys come out in their freshman years, all world, right? Like Jordan Ross on the offensive side of the ball, to Clelin Ferrell, Brian Brzee, the guy the Bengals drafted in the first round, whose name Miles Murphy, a couple other edge rushers have kind of had that same trajectory, and the same is true for Peter Woods here, where that first year you're like, whoa. And everything after that is law of diminishing returns. So is that a Clemson thing? At this point, I'm starting to think that's a Clemson thing. So maybe there's untapped potential at the next level for Peter Woods and some of these Clemson players once they get to the league. So I do like the fit. And for the Saints, there's still a lot of work to be done on that roster as a whole. So if they view Peter Woods as like, and again, not a class with a ton of top end talent. So if they see Woods as the next best, highest floor available, wouldn't really shock me. And, Kellen Moore, coming from Philadelphia, continue to build in the trenches, doesn't really surprise me. Also a team that has so much money still against the cap. Getting cheaper on the offensive line and defensive line are 2 ways you could quickly expedite the cap. And of course, a rookie contract quarterback goes a long way for that too. So I think that's another one of those aspects too. You got an offensive tackle on a rookie contract, 2 of them really, and Fuaga and Calvin Banks Jr. Now quarterback, let's get cheaper, younger defensive line as well. Then let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs here at number 9. This one have Kenyon Sadiq come off the board. Just haven't done it yet, to the best of my knowledge in a mock, especially not this high. But look, the Chiefs offense this year looked like it was light on weapons, and it might have one of its greatest all-time weapons in Travis Kelce hang it up this year. So I'm just looking at that as if Kelce's out and they already needed weapons, you got to backfill that spot ASAP. And I just think from a skill set standpoint, Sadiq offers so much of what Andy Reid and what the Chiefs got out of Travis Kelce in his prime. I thought Sadiq took some big steps for this year in the back half of the season in regards to his route running, head and shoulder fakes. He is a good inline blocker. Don't let anybody tell you he's not, because he's 6'3". This guy can get low, win with leverage, and he's got a really strong base. He's really evenly distributed, but he's got a more powerful base than you would think when you just see 6'3", 245. But he's got the power to be an inline blocker, but great movement skills. He's a great weapon after the catch. And that's what this Chiefs offense is kind of molded into, being yards after the catch oriented. Those option routes to Kelce, let him find the soft spot, let him make a play afterwards, or in the red zone, those shuffle passes, the design screens to the tight end, all that, and then some for Kenyon Sadiq. And this Kansas City offense to me is an absolute home run fit. To the Cincinnati Bengals, Caleb Downs. This is one that I've probably done more. It's probably the most common pick I've had in the first round. The Bengals defense is very bad. They need someone to raise the floor of that defense. The safety play was not very good. So whether it's in the box, as the over-the-top free safety, as a tight end eraser, as a matchup guy against running backs as out of the backfield, you name it, Caleb Downs raises the floor of that Cincinnati Bengals defense. So I've done this a ton. Don't feel like I need to harp on it too much longer than that. And then it takes us to the Dolphins, another team that's now got its defense, now got its head coach of the future and defensive-minded guy, Jeff Hafley. I think this makes it even more clear of a signal. Now, granted, Hafley was a part of a staff that moved on from Jair Alexander last year and then didn't reinvest in corner until like Trevon Diggs became available at the end of the season. So, maybe that's a signal that in his mind, corner's about coaching more than it is talent. That'd be interesting. But I am curious how the reporting around that goes, because some coaches definitely think that I'll coach these guys up. I don't need headline expensive talent. Now, granted, we're talking about a rookie here, but he may see another need on the roster being more worth the 11th overall pick than corner, where I can coach these guys up. Just going to be interesting to see how that narrative kind of plays out. But that being said, if they do want an infusion of talent, none better at the cornerback position than Jermon McCoy. He is, to me, the best cornerback in this class. Yes, he was injured this year, but he also could have come back. Ultimately, him and Tennessee decide, for the best case for both of us, let's just go ahead and let you focus on going to the NFL draft. So I think he could have played as early as the Arkansas game last year is what I've heard. So CB1 from a size, a physicality, a movement skill standpoint, but also technical refinement. Can play man and zone at a high level. So whatever Hafley wants to do. His college roots say man coverage. His time in Green Bay says zone heavy. Whatever it ends up being, Jordyn McCoy is a fit. And then this becomes one of the next easiest picks I could have done. The Dallas Cowboys with the home run selection here in Sonny Styles. Styles should not fall to the top 12. Again, in a class that doesn't have great top end talent, he's maybe the best non-quarterback in this class. No world where he should fall to 12. But justifying a linebacker pick, and specifically one where Reese specifically can look at and say pass rush upside. And Styles, late in that game against Miami, he started rushing him off the edge and blitzing him up the middle. He can do some of that, but it's not quite the same pass rush potential we see in someone like an Arvell Reese. So maybe he does get dinged on that a little bit. Maybe the linebacker position value does weigh into enough people's minds, and that puts him right in the lap of the Dallas Cowboys. And look, I was a huge Demarvion Overshown guy. Off-ball linebacker 5, that entire draft from preseason summer scouting all the way through till my final rankings day before the draft. I was a big Demarvion Overshown fan. So him plus Styles, sign me up. 2 safeties, turned to linebacker, freak athleticism. Styles is a great downhill player, and Overshown's getting better and better at that. I mean, that could be a really fun 1-2 punch. If Overshown can get back to where he was pre-injury, then Styles, I love the player. That's a home run fit. I just haven't seen many mocks where this has really played out, but this was kind of one where I ran into it, and I was like, oh, well, Styles is the pick here at 12. Duh. Anyways, let's get on to the Los Angeles Rams here at 13. I'm going to go Spencer Fano, and I just want to double check, and I even consulted Super Brain once again. This was a team that was 47% outside zone, 45% gap scheme last year. So they mix it up pretty evenly, but I just do want to say, compared to what that was 6 years ago in Los Angeles, that's a huge departure from what McVay once was. So a lot more zone being worked into it, specifically in the red zone, but they are pretty even 50-50 split. And you can see nearly 80 grade for the zone and then right at 80 for the gap for Fano. So does he need to bulk up? Yes. Are the arm length questions going to be there? I do think they are. But I think from a long-term right tackle spot, this guy is a versatile scheme fit, and Rob Havenstein getting a little long in the tooth here. So we're going to keep a strength to strength. That offensive line has worked in the Rams' favor, and if they can squeeze one more year out of Matt Stafford, having a healthy right tackle would be one big reason or catalyst to being able to do just that. And then with the 14th overall pick, something that would make my eyes bleed as a Steelers fan, Makai Lemon going to the Baltimore Ravens. I've been on a couple pods this last week, and Makai Lemon comes up. And I think set in stone, he's not like my number 1 player on my board, but he's a top 10 guy. But I think he's my favorite player in this class to watch. Like, I think he is the ultimate my guy of the class. Like, if I needed something to brighten my day, I'd probably throw in Makai Lemon highlights. And he is small. So, like, it's most of the time when I'm mocking receiver to the Ravens last few years, it's been the big prototype. It'd be like a Carnell Tate type. But obviously, he's not available here. But I will say where Lemon is a similar stature of Zay Flowers, he is so dependable over the middle of the field, and he has so much better body control and sideline work than I think people want to give him credit for, because they see 5'10" and they're just kind of like let that put blinders on, and this player can only be so good at certain things. But I think he's a way more dependable physical player than people want to give him credit for, and I think that's the nitty-gritty receiver this team hasn't had. The guy who can do the easy things, never tackled where he catches the football. It's something I love to say about Makai Lemon, but he can also work the sideline and make those tough 50-50 grabs and just plays above the rim better than you would think. Even looking at Puka Nacua, he's not Calvin, he's not Megatron, certainly from an athletic standpoint, but balls up in the air. If he's the intended target, you feel pretty good about him coming down with it. And I think Lemon, not same size, not saying it's a 1-to-1 comp, but he brings some of that to the table. So yes, he's a smaller receiver in stature, and typically I've looked to get to them the prototypical X big body line of scrimmage, line them up there, let them battle press type of guy. I do think Lemon's the dependable receiver they still are looking to add. So even though the size is more the same, I think his dependability is the missing factor there for the Ravens. And then this would be a home run pick for the Bucs. I frankly don't think David Bailey's going to be here this low. So he would have gone 9 to the Chiefs if I didn't go Sadiq there. Just full transparency. I've had some Chiefs fans say he's not their type, but frankly, I think it's time to move on with your types, considering how bad that pass rush was last year. And David Bailey is a pass rush winner. And frankly, Todd Bowles coaching for his job. So if David Bailey falls there, I don't give 2 shits about what they think of him as a run defender or anything like that. I don't care. You've got Vita Vea, you've got Logan Hall, you've got guys who can play rundowns. Don't worry about that. If you draft David Bailey for 20 reps a week and they are passing situations, Todd Bowles should be elated, frankly. And to be honest, I think the phrase that Sean McDermott, former head coach of the Bills now, has used as 2.5 down player, that's kind of where I'm at with Bailey. He's a better run defender this year than he was at Stanford. He's gained about 10 pounds, so you can leave him out there. Not necessarily ideal, but you can. And it's not the end of the world, right? And you could even stack a line where maybe your better run defending 3-tech is next to him, or right, or like your better linebacker is shaded over to his side of it. You can work through this. So a Bucs team that how many years now we've been talking about, man, they need pass rush help. Go make this happen. I don't care about the run defense. Wherever you stand on that, don't worry about it. He's one of the best pure pass. I will go as far as to say he is the best pure edge rusher from a pass rush standpoint in this class. And Bain's kind of a tweener, so that's why I don't mind saying that. But pure edge, pure pass rush, not taking run defense into account, Baylor's the best in the class, bar none. So in my eyes, so the Bucs have no room to pass in this selection. All right, 16th overall pick for the New York Jets, a team that had no interceptions last year. Dumbfounding. I'm going to give them Mansour Delane. And not that the ball production was that crazy this year, but it's because, frankly, no one was throwing at him. But sub 50% completion percentage when targeting his area. Just silky smooth feet, man. The long speed's going to be a question mark, but he just has so much of the refinement down and in place. This guy's played so much college football. And from a technical side, I think Aaron Glenn's going to look at Mansour Delane and be like, that guy's ready for Sundays. And you're talking about former first-round pick at corner for the New York Jets. I think he's got the eye for that. And frankly, again, the Jets secondary was abysmal last year. So let's go get a guy like Mansour Delane to go clean that up. And we went pass rusher earlier on. So even if I do have speed concerns with Mansour Delane, hopefully our pass rush juice with Bain up front will help offset that. And hopefully we won't be giving quarterbacks too much time for quarterbacks to get behind Mansour Delane. All right, Detroit Lions. This is another one, and I hate to be repetitive, but I'm going to go Caleb Lomu here. Until I find out what the answer at left tackle is going to be for the Lions, that's going to be the way I move forward. And you could still go into your offensive line second, third round. I'm curious to see, is Glasnow the guy they want to be playing at center, or would they prefer him to play guard? And if that's the case, are you drafting a center and moving on from Mahogany because Glasnow's going to play one of those guard spots? I'm just curious to get some more information on what the Lions are really looking for. Or are they comfortable with Glasnow playing center and they're looking to replace Mahogany at guard? That's just kind of the point of clarification. But I'm also looking for a left tackle of the future. Did a great job with Penei Sewell. And let's go see if they can work the same magic with a high upside pass protector in Caleb Lomu. Let's get to the Minnesota Vikings then at 18. I think I did this in the last mock. So again, I hate to repeat myself, but I'm going to go Avion Terrell. Honestly, inside out versatility, but probably better off on the inside. Now that does move Byron Murphy Jr. out to the outside, but you're probably looking at him in his last year in Minnesota. And there's also, like, is Brian Flores going to come back? Right? He's doing a bunch of these head coaching interviews, DC interviews. I kind of think he's going to land a head coaching job somewhere in the AFC North, either Pittsburgh or Baltimore, but I don't know. I definitely don't know anything. But if there's a world where he's just doing this DC interviews just to give the Vikings a number, this is a home run fit. Like, this guy, the forced fumbles, the inside-out versatility, the movement skills, this guy would be Flores corner through and through. But it is a bit of a TBD on if Flores is even going to be there. So more on that once we find out. But even if it's not Flores, yes, Terrell's a perfect Flores fit, but they need to overhaul that corner room. They need to get cheaper, younger. They need some long-term pieces there, right? Like Murphy, we're talking about someone who's probably on the last year of his deal. Mekhi Blackman, no longer in Minnesota. And, of course, Kyrie Jackson, tragic passing. They need an infusion of youth and guys who are going to be there for 4 or 5 years down the line at that position. All right, pick number 19. I'm going to have Keldrick Falk go to the Panthers. I know they drafted 2 guys day 2, but neither one of those 2 guys, especially with Scorton at 256, I don't think either one of those 2 guys, you're like, that's a lights-out run defender. And frankly, because of that, that's why DJ Wonnum sees the field. So minimum, I see this as a way to get DJ Wonnum off the roster, get cheaper and younger on your early downs. And I think Falk's probably a day 1 better run defender. I know it's crazy because Wonnum's been in the league for a while, but Falk's going to be an awesome run defender pretty much as soon as he steps on the field. It's just going to be TBD on what you get him as a pass rusher. But frankly, you have Uman Mielen and you have Scorton for that. So this is one of the few landing spots where I'm like, even if he's only a good early down player, at pick 19, I don't hate the value here. So kudos to the Panthers for winning the division, making this an even easier selection for prospect to pick value, making sure that lines up better here. So good on you, Carolina. All right, back to the Dallas Cowboys. They move on from Trayvon Diggs. Deron Bland's probably best served as a slot corner. So you got Shavon Ravel. I'm not ready to quit on that, but I do think another outside corner could go a long way to boosting that team's defense all in all. And dude, Keith Abney is just so fun to watch. And I mean, you're talking about a former national champion roller skater, great body control, but a great man coverage corner. He's got the dog in him too. And I love that in a corner where, yeah, you may get me on this rep, but I'm better than you and I'm going to get you on the next one. Like, I just love that mentality, and it's all over him whenever I watch him. So I'm going to go give the Cowboys an infusion of a dog there at that outside corner spot. Keith Abney. Let's move Bland back in the nickel. And now we've gone linebacker. We boosted up the secondary. We're starting to turn things around. I do think edge would be the next best thing here for the Cowboys. They don't have a second round pick in this mock, but just so you're once we get to doing 3-round mocks, if this were to play out here, Styles, Abney, the 3rd-round pick would more than likely be maybe a running back, but probably an edge rusher. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers here at 21. Not going to go the Ty Simpson route. We did that last time. Instead, I'm going to go with Casey Concepcion. And hand up, I'll admit it, I'm a Steelers fan. This would be as close to an ideal first-round pick I could possibly have. Hoping to make the draft this year. It's in Pittsburgh, so I think specifically this pick would be a lot of fun. Casey or Ty, like that to me would light the place on fire. But Casey is a compliment to DK. 1, 2-letter names. Love the continuity. But 2, he is just like I don't want to say jitterbugs. That probably puts him in a certain bucket that I don't really want to put him in. But like this is your explosive, dynamic after the catch satellite weapon that just DK Metcalf. You could use him after the catch, but that's not his calling card. We want DK running the vertical tree and the slant off of it and comeback routes off of it. So KC is the Z/slot. Sharp breaks out of his route stems. Can get downfield in a hurry. Honestly, pretty good in the air and stacking DBs, more than you would think for a sub-6-foot receiver. And then, of course, he's a great satellite weapon. So, of course, new offensive mind coming in, new head coach. So a lot of new coming into Pittsburgh. So once we have an idea of who the OC is, who the play caller is, what the scheme is, we'll have an idea. But I think really agnostic of scheme, KC as a compliment to DK could work for really just about any play caller. Let's get on to the Los Angeles Chargers. This is about as high as I'm going to have him go in any mock. I'm going to go Caden Proctor here, and hand up, I have Monroe Freeling as a higher graded player than Proctor. Proctor's just barely inside my top 50. I do see him as guard, frankly. But I'm doing this here because I think, one, at guard, I know they moved on from Greg Roman, but they needed to add an infusion of talent on the interior offensive line in and of itself, waiting to figure out what the scheme's going to be, more gap, more zone. I have a feeling it's still going to be kind of gap man stuff, just because I feel like that's in Harbaugh's blood. I want to line up my offensive line. I want to kick the ass of whoever's in front of me. I think that runs in his veins. So from that standpoint, I kind of prefer Proctor in his own scheme, because part of the allurement, especially at guard, would be like he's 365 pounds and he moves pretty well. But frankly, I just don't think the outside shoulder and overall foot speed are good enough to play it offensive tackle. So I think putting him between a center and a tackle is the best way to kind of keep him in a phone booth and maximize his frame and maximize his power. So guard definitely here for the Chargers, waiting to see if it's zone or gap, but I think either way Proctor fits into it. And then you do have the added luxury of, God forbid, if something happens to Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt again, you can move Proctor in a pinch. So that's part of the reason I went with Proctor here, but I'll admit, I'm not really the world's biggest like first round Proctor advocate. So let that be what it is. Chargers fans, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Would you rather just go Vega or Pregnon here if that's the case? I can't really knock you, and frankly, they're higher on my board, so maybe I should have. Anyways, let's get on to pick number 23. I'm going to give the Philadelphia Eagles Brandon Cisse, the cornerback from South Carolina. Physical corner who's not afraid to go get a guy at the line of scrimmage. Really good in press. I think the tackling is a little bit of an effort question mark there. But typically Vic Fangio's gotten guys to buy in on that side of the ball when it comes to tackling, with maybe the exception of Adoree Jackson. But that's just, I'm totally broadcast scouting there from just a couple of Eagles games I remember this year, and I might not have had the full context needed for that play. But that being said, I think him, Quinyon Mitchell on the outside, Cooper DeJean in the nickel, yes times 1,000. That's a great young secondary. And especially while you're eventually going to pay Mitchell and DeJean, it might be good to have one other top flight, starting corner in that bunch, being a guy who's pretty cheap. So Cisse's timeline financially kind of matches up with, you're going to have to pay Mitchell and DeJean before you know it. So let's keep another corner pretty cheap on the books. All right, let's go on to the Cleveland Browns here at 24. And like I said, I'm going to go offensive line heavy here to start, because look, they're going to have to overhaul that unit. They might have to get 5 new starters as early as this year. I will say the next mock will probably have them go receiver here at 6 and then Monroe Freeling here at 24. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I didn't do that here, and I want to do something a little different. CeCe Maui Noah, that's your right tackle, right guard of the future. And then Vega Ioane is going to be your left guard of the future. So 2 starting offensive linemen with the first 2 picks. Let's get back to basics. When the Cleveland Browns looked like they had something in end of year 2, Baker Mayfield, when they go on the playoff run with Joe Flacco, a big reason they're able to make things like that happen is their run game. And their offensive line was a big catalyst for that. So you've got 2 great backs, I think, long-term. Judkins, and 3 really if you want to throw Rocket Sanders in there. But Judkins, Sampson, Rocket Sanders, I think you got 3 good backs. I think you got a future committee right there. Got to bolster that offensive line. So I know it's not sexy going back-to-back offensive line with the first 2 picks for the Browns, but we are going to go receiver with the next pick. So take solace. Give me a minute here. But dude, I think it's time to eat your vegetables there in Cleveland, especially considering how are you going to win games in that environment, that weather, and still not a great quarterback's position. It's not a great receiver room. You're going to win games with your defense and by establishing the run. So I know that's such a boomer thing to say for a 28-year-old, but I think it's high time that the Browns put that investment in. And speaking of Monroe feeling, that's going to be the pick here for the Chicago Bears. Frankly, seeing how hard they work to not get Theo Beneday on the field just tells me everything. And even more so, Braxton Jones. Like, they don't want to touch Braxton Jones with a 10-foot pole, let alone like Theo Beneday. They're like, we can get him out there and we'll throw a little flat pass to him because that's cute. But they would rather move Joe Tooney to left tackle than let either one of those two guys play left tackle, and then they backfill with the other guard spot. That's all I need to know. That is all I need to know. Monroe Freeling has all the tools and traits. He does need to bulk up. He is, in a lot of ways, kind of like your poor man's Caleb Lomu, where I think body-wise, they're both a year or two away physically, muscle mass-wise, physically a year or two away. But foot skills, hand placement, mirroring people in pass protection, just the overall composure these guys have with pass rushers coming their way. Not much overwhelms these guys. So I think long-term, you're getting two really solid pass protectors. Lomu went to the Lions, and Freeling goes to another NFC powerhouse here for the Chicago Bears. To me, they told me everything they need to know. They don't have their long-term left tackle in that building. I think it's worth a swing of the bat here with Monroe Freeling at 25. Buffalo Bills at 26. I'm going to go Denzel Boston. I've seen some people comp this as the Keon Coleman thing all over again. Frankly, I couldn't disagree more. Look, I don't think Boston is going to have the straight line speed that Coleman did. And Coleman, former basketball player in college, like Coleman's a really good athlete. And I think Boston's a fluid, functional, highly functional athlete. I don't think the 40 time is going to be like, holy cow, draft this guy in the top 15. It's going to be probably mid 4.5s. But I think how he moves out of his break, how he works the sideline, he snatches the ball in the air, long arms, big catch radius. And frankly, he just does much more of the receiver aspect of the game better than Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman's still a work in progress as a route runner, stacking DBs, and frankly, showing up to practice. Don't think any of those things are going to be an issue here with Denzel Boston. So I think Boston's just what they want Keon Coleman to be, not Keon Coleman all over again. So hopefully that explains kind of where I disagree wholeheartedly. And frankly, if you made Boston the pick here, I think you just flip Coleman for whatever you can get him for. Like, send him to San Francisco and see if you can get a 5th-round pick, and then let the 49ers deal with all that, and maybe they would be able to make it work. And speaking of the 49ers, they're on the clock here at 27. That's called a segue in showbiz. Going back to the interior offensive line, Manuel Pregnon, great zone blocking, great. I think this is a hand-and-glove scheme fit. And the impact that Dominic Pooney had at right guard, I think Pregnon could have a similar impact over there at left guard. And I think Trent Williams will come back for another year, but it might be time to go ahead and start investing in that offensive line. Adding a guard doesn't alleviate the long-term need of post-life, without Trent Williams, but this should make that offensive line as a 5-person unit higher and better overall. So then you're going to address that tackle position later on in this draft or in the next season. All right, let's get on to the Houston Texans. And this is just kind of a tough break here for Houston because Pregnon just went. Vega's already gone. Proctor would be an interesting guard convert for them. And maybe that's something we'll do in the next mock is Proctor here. But offensive line's kind of all hit. But, dude, especially with how he's played in the college football national championship game, the college quarterfinals, he got hurt in like the first play of the semis. But, dude, Ahmad Moten Sr., like, he's in the PFF simulator because so many people were harassing Trevor Sikkema about it. Like, that's how good of an impact he's had down the last month or two of the season. And from a pass rush standpoint, this guy has got quicks off the line. His hands fire. His feet are way quicker, way more shifty than you would think for someone who's 324 pounds. So he's quick off the ball. His hands fire. He's got a ton of pop in there. He had a rep yesterday where he just bowled over the Indiana right guard. And, I mean, that's been their weak spot of their offensive line all year long, right guard for the Hoosiers. But, I mean, Moten did not make that guy look any better. So, frankly, maybe first round's a little early, but he might be my D tackle too. I just love, and I liked him at the beginning of the year. He kind of popped for me as a run defender, and then over the course of the year, I'm like, dude, this guy's got it from a pass rush standpoint. So, yeah, big fan of Ahmad Moten. I think, late first round is not out of the realm of possibility for the now national runner-up Ahmad Moten. All right, let's get on the Rams here at 29. I've been talking about this on a few podcasts. Don't know if I can totally make it happen moving forward because I do actually have a higher grade on Hood than I do Brandon Cisse. So, Hood probably should have been the pick of the Eagles, but I think Cisse could fit with Fangio. But Colton Hood's the corner, and Cisse for that matter too, is the physical type of corner the Rams just don't have. Like, when the Rams secondary, things aren't going well, it's because A.J. Brown's dropping 130 in the second half on them, and Emmanuel Forbes is just getting tossed like a rag doll, and Darius Williams is 5'9". They need a physical power corner. And Hood will go at the line of scrimmage. He's got good pop in his hands, long arms, and he will play physical bump and run coverage with anybody. And I think him and Cisse are probably the two most physical corners in this class. So either one of those two guys to the Rams, to me, is like the answer to the question they have in the secondary right now. They just need someone who can play physical X receiver. They need an A.J. Brown answer. And I'm saying Colton Hood's going to blanket A.J. Brown. That would be high praise, but that's the body type to make something like that happen. New England Patriots next up here at 30. I do think linebacker's a spot. I've been talking to one of my subscribers on my channel, and a good friend of mine, Snap Judgments, is now what he's calling his podcast. So definitely go check out all of his work. But especially if you're a Patriots fan, he's got an encyclopedia worth of knowledge about everything that goes on inside the Patriots building and how they work and whatnot. So, but he mentioned linebacker to me as something they could definitely use. And that's mock TJ Allen fell into their lap. And I might have Trotter as a higher graded linebacker than Allen, but they're going to be razor thin. And actually, I think they're side by side on my big board right now. So athletic testing is probably going to break that up for me. But nevertheless, either one of those two guys, great downhill trigger, very sure tacklers. I think Trotter's a little bit more violent, but maybe Allen's a little bit further on in regards to like his feel and coverage. But even that's still TBD. But either one of those two guys is a great downhill run defense piece. Just like an old school thumping linebacker. Sign me up for that. Let me get to the Denver Broncos here at 31, and I'm going to do it, dude. Dylan Thieneman, I know obviously Oregon season's done after the loss in the semifinals, but dude, Thieneman, he had a great season. Post Penn State game on, the man was on a burner, and not just as an over the top coverage player, but like doing a lot of dirty work as a tackler, like form tackling, filling in gaps. I mean, he really impressed me from that standpoint because that was one of my issues with him coming to Purdue. Is I just think there's some tackling stuff that leaves a lot to be desired, and then taking the cheese as that single high center fielder. Sometimes teams could set him up. And I think his discipline, both as a tackler and not taking the bait, those answers have been, those questions have been answered for me. So late first round, I'm kind of there with Dylan Thieneman. He's my safety too. And, PJ Locke, I think he's a good player. Talanoa Hufanga, good player. He's battled injuries, but I do think like Loki's safety long-term could be, and I think Thieneman just frankly could be better than PJ Locke. And I know a lot of Broncos fans like PJ Locke, but I think Thieneman long-term is just a better player. Let's get on to the Seattle Seahawks next up. Whether it's Josh Jobe or Tariq Woolen, I do think that other outside corner spot, right? You have Eman Wari playing the nickel. Witherspoon's a freaking animal, and he's awesome everywhere they line him up. I do think that other outside corner spot could get better. And Jobs have moments. I get it, but you don't have to do this. But also, we're just talking about like what's presentable here. I don't think you have to go front seven. That's kind of where the strength of this class is at this moment. You're obviously not going to go quarterback, maybe go receiver. But I think with Shaheed, I'm also a big Torrey Horton guy. I don't think you have to do anything like that. And maybe with one of the linebackers, maybe Josiah Trotter's the pick there. But Seahawks fans, I'd be curious with this board. What's your lean here? I thought it was just kind of a tough board the way it broke for y'all. I'd love to go into your offensive line, but we're going to do that with your second round pick instead. Because even those guys, maybe I go Basantis here, but I'm going to have Basantis go in a few picks, and I like the value better there. Carter Smith's back to school, so it's not going to be him. Brian Parker, pretty early to take a center to me. So I went with Chris Johnson there. One part because he's best player available. And two, I think this is going to be a name that is an absolute riser out of the Senior Bowl. So I'm getting out in front of it. I think after the Senior Bowl, we're going to talk about Chris Johnson as a first-round guy.
It is 32 Beat Writers season, August, when they can make you a lot of money, especially on a platform like Fast Draft. Doesn't have hundreds of best ball bro killers. So when there's an injury and you hear about it through 32 Beat Writers, you can run to the Fast Draft app and jump into a Flex 4 game. Just draft any 6 Flex players. Top 4 enter your lineup every week. Or the Rabbit, 15-round best ball. Get your quarterback wide receiver stacks, get your running back sleepers. And if you follow 32 Beat Writers, you can jump into these draft rooms and be like, oh my God, I'm avoiding this guy at all costs, and I'm gobbling up all of this other running back before the larger public is fully aware, has fully digested the ramifications of the information that 32 Beat Writers is sharing. So go get Fast Draft, type in that code 32BW. 32BW is the code. Get you a $50 deposit match on Fast Draft. Now let's go start drafting faster.
All right, we get back to the New York Jets. Speaking of Josiah Trotter, so again, maybe the Seahawks could have done this with their last pick, but I'm going to go with Josiah Trotter here for the New York Jets. We went edge rusher, inside out, Ruben Bain. We went corner with Mansour Delane, and now I'm finally getting that third level. In this case, it's the middle level, but I'm finally hitting on the third level of defense that I haven't hit on yet, and just a violent player. His downhill trigger, this team got ran over a ton over the second half of the season. Like, it got a little comical. You watch the Jags game, and you're like, dude, can this team tackle whatsoever? Josiah Trotter is going to bring a thump. Like, this guy is violent, absolutely crazy downhill linebacker. Yes, still a work in progress when it comes to the coverage stuff. You can see here with the 47.9. But I'm trying to think. I think it was the Vanderbilt game. He has a goal line tackle, and I'm pretty sure it's the Vandy game. That'll make the hair on the back of your neck stand up because you're like, holy shit, how did he stop that guy from crossing the goal line? That is unreal. So just an old school thumping physical. This is your Bart Scott. If you are a Jets fan and you are missing Bart Scott's presence, Josiah Trotter is going to bring that energy. He's going to bring that thump to the middle of that defense. And then we get to the Arizona Cardinals, and this is, like I said, I'm going to overhaul the Cardinals backfield in today's video. So we went Jeremiah Love with the 3rd overall pick, and I went Ty Simpson in the 2nd round. Simpson is not a lot to go first round. I think he should. Pittsburgh at 21, the Rams for that 2nd first-round pick, or a team trading back in the 1st round. Maybe it's Arizona doing something like that, mirroring what the Giants did last year. But still wait and see on what the offensive scheme is going to be in Arizona. But you're telling me a guy who played in the worst rushing attack I've ever seen Alabama have during my 28 years on this planet and had good receivers, but Jeremy Bernard's more of like a complimentary piece. Ryan Williams took a big step back this year. Okay. Well, now he's stepping into an offense with Marvin Harrison Jr., really solid player. Michael Wilson come off a career season. The best tight end in football, arguably, in Trey McBride. Either him or Brock Bowers. He's 1 or 2. And then Jeremiah Love's your running back. That's an offense with an abundance of weapons compared to what Ty Simpson was working with at Bama. And I think, again, we're waiting to see on the hire, but get this guy under center, play action heavy. Yes, you're going to have to overhaul the offensive line to make Simpson look better, make Love look better, and in turn get to that play action heavy, way of insulating Ty Simpson. And frankly, like if Clint Kubiak, like everything he did in Seattle, now we're talking about him going in division, but like if let's just say he gets the Cardinals job, I look at what he could do, heavy personnel passing packages, like he did in Seattle this year, where a lot of 2 tight end sets, and we only have really 1 wide receiver we love in Jackson Smith and Jigba, but we're forcing you into heavier personnel on the defensive side, and that's opening up passing windows. I would love to see that with Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. So, like, to me, they kind of have the pieces to let Clint Kubiak do more of that heavy personnel passing, and I think it'd be the perfect fit for Ty Simpson. So, not saying Clint Kubiak's going to Arizona. I'm not saying Clay Kubiak even is going to go to Arizona, but like, those are the guys I'm looking at as like, man, if they could get one of those 2 there, or maybe it's Sean McDermott and he's going to bring some offensive line with him that will do that. I don't know, but that would be ideal here. So Cardinals fans, let me know. If Ty Simpson follows you in the 2nd round, are you here for that fit? I think it's too good of a value. If he falls out of the 1st round, seriously, what do you have to lose? You're moving on from Kyler. You're going to trade him. So what do you have to lose? All right, let's go on to the Tennessee Titans here at 35. I'm going to have Chris Bell come off the board here. Frankly, they have enough receivers where they could live. Like if Chris Bell missed the first half of the year, they can live with Ayu Manor and Chimere DK. You like to have a veteran receiver, and you're still looking for an alpha. But this team isn't winning games anytime soon. So even if Bell's not ready week 1, if he's ready by week 9, you can get an idea of like where he fits in the mix of Ayu Manor and Chimere DK. And I still think they're looking for that alpha. And I think Chris Bell's got the upside, right? Like an absolutely freaky athlete, 6'1", 227. He's got the ball winning skills. He showcased that on tape. But there's a lot of refinement that's still not a lot, but there's still refinement that needs to be done with his route running and whatnot. And I think his hands could be a little bit more reliable. There's still work in progress here for sure. But his frame, his athleticism, the ball winning ability, everything he does after the catch, sign me up. I think this could be the number 1 wide receiver. And frankly, yes, he's hurt, but the Titans are not winning games anytime soon. So like, don't rush it. I think this could be the number 1 wide receiver. And dude, his athletic ability, his physicality, specifically down the field for those 50-50 balls Ward wants to throw, I think that could be a really nice 1-2 punch. All right, let's get on to the Raiders here at 36. This is where I'm going to have Caden McDonald come off the board. They've had a Christian Wilkins-sized hole in the middle of the defensive line ever since they signed him, just because it never really came to fruition. Caden McDonald, don't know what he's really going to be at the next level as a pass rusher, but frankly, I think he's a better run defender, and I have higher overall prospect grade on him than I did Tyleek Williams last year. And Tyleek went 1st round. So Caden McDonald could easily go round 1. But if you're the Raiders, and I think you're getting a better version of Tyleek Williams, a more athletic version of that, at 36, sprint the card. Don't overthink this. To the New York Giants, the aforementioned Chase Basantis is going to be the pick here. To me, he's one of maybe the best pass-protecting guard in this class. And it's John Runyon right now at one of those guard spots. I'm trying to think of the other guard off the top of my head, and it's not anybody great, unfortunately. So I think you plug Basantis in at left guard, getting an absolute bolster to the pass protection on that side. And also, like you saw this on Hard Knocks, frankly. But yeah, John Runyon's played both guard spots. That was part of the reason the Giants coveted him. He's got a lot of starting experience in a lot of different spots. So Basantis at left guard, you're probably moving Runyon to right guard. And then, TBD on what's going to happen at right tackle. I guess maybe more Jermaine Illuminor. Could have also gone Blake Miller here, which, speaking of Blake Miller, he is going to be the pick here for the Houston Texans. I think we saw this last week. One, C.J. Stroud played horrible. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but also Titus Howard is not the answer at right tackle. Better guard to me. Texans fans, I've heard the opposite, but watching that playoff game, I don't see him as a tackle. I frankly don't. But Blake Miller, I think that's your right tackle of the future. So Erstrit, left tackle, Miller at right tackle, 2 second-round picks become your tackle tandem of the future. Let's move Titus Howard back inside to guard. That will help insulate some of the interior offensive line overhaul. I think that needs to still happen. But that unit also got better over the course of the season, too. It went from abysmal to holding on by a thread. But I do think it's still a unit you can address. We couldn't do it in the first round, but I'm going to give them that right tackle of the future and Blake Miller. I felt like his play strength finally caught up. He was always a good athlete, but he just would have trouble with guys getting in the middle of his chest, and he didn't really generate any drive off the line of scrimmage as a run blocker. This year, progress in both those areas. So got a ton of a starting experience, played a lot of ball at Clemson too. So I think a plug-and-play option for a team that should be competing for a playoff spot again next year. All right, Browns, you are next up here at 39. I'm going to give you the first of two Indiana receivers to come off the board. And look at that. Trevor Sikkema has also made the update. I think Omar Cooper Jr. is going to go before Elijah Surratt. And I like Surratt. And it's going to be close in this mock, but Surratt's probably more of a mid-second to third round guy, to be honest. He's probably more of a third round guy for me, but we are about to hit a run on guys or teams that need receivers. So I'm going to go with Omar Cooper Jr. I would love to give this team an X receiver, but in this instance, I'm just going to go best receiver available, and to me, that is Cooper Jr. So Tillman's going to be our X, and then Cooper Jr. becomes the Z slot that, look, Jerry Jeudy's just not a consistently productive player. You know, he's got some games. He's had some insane moments, some insane production, but he's also the guy that I remember caught a pass, gets in the middle of the open field, starts to set up a defender, and then gets it punched out right behind. It's like the big play. He hooks up with Shedeur Sanders, the Raiders game. They get this big connection. Oh, my God, Jerry Jeudy, he's there to make a big play when they need it, and then poof, punched out. That's the Jerry Jeudy lifestyle, man. It's for every one step forward, it's two steps back right after. So let's just move on. Let's just move on. I know they paid him too. You don't love that, but frankly, that receiver room still needs a lot of work. So honestly, even if you draft Omar Cooper Jr., Jerry Jeudy's unfortunately still probably seeing the field. So I guess the money's not totally for waste. Anyways, Kansas City Chiefs next up here at 40. Like I said earlier, I would have gone Patrick Bailey at 9 if I didn't go Sadiq. So frankly, once Cassius Howell was here at 40, I was like, yeah, okay, cool. We're going to do that. Again, I know he doesn't fit the mold for what they typically draft in these heavy set edge rushers. They have got to get pass rush winners. And Howell is going to have short arms. He is not going to be a high-end run defender because of that. He's got decent lower half thickness. You know, he's got some weight in his lower half, so he can hold at the point of attack a little bit better than maybe Bailey does. But the arm length is going to be definitely a limiting factor on how high of a ceiling he has as a run defender. But if you're the Chiefs, you don't care. You're hoping to get back on track, and you're hoping to be leading a lot of games by a touchdown, 2 touchdowns next year. And you need pass rush winners. And Howell is exactly that. So I like him more in the second round range. And frankly, I think it's time for the Chiefs to re-examine maybe their philosophy on how they draft some of these defensive linemen. All right, pick 41 belongs to the Cincinnati Bengals. First round, we went Caleb Downs to raise the floor of this defense. And here I'm going to go with Christian Miller, him or Lee Hunter, either one of these two guys. And Hunter's going to come off the board in just a few picks. So you could easily flip where I had Miller and Hunter going if you think Hunter's a better player. But interior defensive line, that middle of that defensive line's just been too bad for too long. They don't get any pass rush juice really out of that unit. And they've also been very bad against the run. I really thought Chris Jenkins was going to be an answer there, but even that hasn't really come to fruition. Miller is a very good run defender, but with his movement skills and his long limbs, specifically his long arms, I do think there is some pass rush juice there. Just Georgia doesn't always let him take advantage of that. So I do wonder if there's some untapped potential at the next level as a pass rusher, but simply as a run defender, Christian Miller here at 41 brings a ton of value for the Cincinnati Bengals defense. All right, to the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to go to we're going to have a little bit of a receiver run here. I'd be fine with really any of these guys. Bernard would be an interesting kind of just high floor option. I'm going to go with Jacoby Lane, just a little bit of a higher ceiling. Don't know, again, the vertical plane is not necessarily what like wows you with Jacoby Lane, but I do think there's good movement skills in and out of his breaks after the catch. And he's got some good, contested catch, high point ability. And I think Olave is the separator. Now let's go get that 50-50 contested ball guy and another impact player in the red zone too. And USC does a great job scheming him up in the screen game in the red zone, but also just getting him isolated, moving him before the snap, right? Giving him a little bit of head start, doing a little bit of the Devontae Adams gamesmanship inside the red zone. So really like how USC used him in the red zone. And I wonder if that's a trump card here for the Saints where it's like, hey, we need another one of these red zone winners. We've got the separator in Olave. Let's go get the big body physical receiver type. And I think Lane could be the guy they're looking for. But I did also consider the guy I'm going to have going here at 43, but decided to have him go to Miami just because I do think I like Lane just a little. I don't know. The contested catch side of Lane I thought was a little bit more of what the Saints might look for. But honestly, if they went Chris Brazzell, I wouldn't have hated it either way. And then you could just flip Lane in for Brazzell here at 43. I'm not knocking it either way. But Brazzell, the vertical speed is going to be pretty good. But we actually just talked about him on the live breakdown we did for our Discord. Way more route running and lateral nuance than you would think for a Tennessee receiver. It is not another Cedric Tillman. It is not another Jalen Hyatt. It's not even another Deontay Thornton, really. He has the out route against Georgia. I think it's like his third route of the game where he sinks his hips, chops the feet, gets to the sideline, makes a really nice grab, leaves the defender 5 yards away from him. It's like one of the best routes I saw all of this year from any receiver. So you're not just getting another one of these Tennessee receivers, but frankly, you are getting an X receiver, which I think frees up Waddle to be where he's best as a Z or a slot. And frankly, for this offense as a Z, and Malik Washington is then your slot. So I like how this just moves pieces around in that wide receiver room, keeps speed at the forefront of this offense, and gives them a guy to play on the line of scrimmage and maybe can make some contested grabs for you along the sideline. And then we get to the Jets here at 44. This one I'm going to have Elijah Surratt come off the board. I didn't think the national championship was all that great from Surratt. Had a weird drop, but also just really wasn't creating a ton of separation. And he's just not a super explosive athlete. So the vertical play, not going to super impress you there. And then even just like the explosion out of his breaks, it's not Omar Cooper Jr. So again, probably more third round for me, to be honest with you, but the Jets need an X receiver. They need someone who plays on the line of scrimmage, can make those 50-50, back shoulder grabs, work the sideline, be a red zone threat, and free up Garrett Wilson to be more of the Z slot where his body type is probably best off for the long term. And considering he battled injuries last year, like, absolutely, I kind of want to keep him away from press coverage just considering how slightly built he is. So I think Surratt's your X. That frees up Wilson to be a much more productive player as a Z or a slot and really just keeps him out of harm's way, hopefully from an injury standpoint too. So I like it. It's probably a half round early for me with Surratt, but that's not to say he's a bad football player, and he's just the type of receiver I think the Jets need right now. To the Baltimore Ravens at 45. This one I have TJ Parker's fall come to an end. Explosive power rusher that I just don't think they really frankly have on that roster right now. So him and Mike Green I think could be the nice 1-2 punch, 2 second-round picks. I know Green didn't have as awesome a year as maybe we could have hoped, and especially if he went in the first round, that we would have hoped had he been that highly drafted of a prospect. But I do think edge is still a position the Ravens are still trying to figure out. They're still trying to get some more juice. Parker's going to set a hard edge as a run defender, and then the power rush element, like I said earlier, not an aspect I think they have in that room right now. So I just like him as a different flavor in that edge rotation for Baltimore. All right, on to pick number 46. We went David Bailey in the first round for the Buccaneers. Linebacker is definitely a position they still need to address for the long term. So I'm going to go Anthony Hill Jr. I personally have Jake Golday with a higher prospect grade, but I do wonder if the blitzing and pass rush upside Anthony Hill Jr. comes into play for Todd Bowles, who wants to blitz. He wants to create these, he wants to put pressure on an offense. He'll send you the cover zero look, even in the NFC Championship game against the Rams. He's not afraid to do that. So I do wonder if Anthony Hill Jr. is more just the flavor of linebacker. But either way, linebacker, Golday, Trotter, if you fell here, would be awesome. Anthony Hill Jr., I just think it's time to go ahead and address that position and get someone that Levante David can hand the torch to. And frankly, someone that Levante David could play next to right now, because Servassier Dennis, to me, is just not it. To the Colts at 43. This is going to be where the Lee Hunter selection is made. Again, you could flip him and Christian Miller if you think Lee Hunter's better. Frankly, I wouldn't disagree with you too hard there. But just not, people should not move the way he does at 330. But he is just a lights out run defender. And when given the opportunity to, man, there's some explosiveness out of his stance as a pass rusher too. So Grover Stewart, you can cut him and save $10 million. Actually, it might be $12 million, but either $10 to $12 million to cut a 30-year-old D tackle. Yeah, I'm jumping all over that, and I'm putting Lee Hunter in there as the Grover Stewart replacement. Sticking with the same pick here at 48 for the Atlanta Falcons. They now have Kevin Stefanski. They now have their new offensive mind in the building. And furthermore, I wish they could have a speed threat to open it up a little bit more. But Jeremy Bernard's the ultimate complementary receiver. He can play inside and out. And I think Drake London's going to play power slot for this team. It's going to be wide zone heavy. And, it's going to be geared around Bijan Robinson, get him the ball as much as possible and then play action off of it. And, I think that ultimately works out well, getting one more pass catcher in this offense, specifically if Kyle Pitts is no longer going to be on the team, which, I kind of wonder where he fits in the mix for Stefanski. So I'm kind of thinking Pitts is out the door. So with Pitts gone, if that's the case, number 2 pass catching role is up for grabs. And Bernard, like I said, the perfect complementary weapon. Finds a soft spot in zone, just enough man coverage, athleticism to beat man coverage, and enough nuance in his route running to be able to do that. Makes the tough grabs. It's just the perfect number 2 guy. So I like him a ton as a compliment to Drake London. Again, wish there was more speed, but you can't win them all. Pick number 49 belongs to the Minnesota Vikings, and with Ryan Kelly, you would have to assume is going to retire. I'm going to give them Connor Lew, who did declare, and to me is still the best center in this class. He's coming off the ACL injury, and the tape before the injury wasn't as good as last year, but on a 2-year sample size, pre-injury, year and a half, I guess, he's the best center in this draft for sure. So love him from a run blocking standpoint. He's a great fit for the zone blocking scheme that KOC wants to implement. And I think he's a pretty good pass protector. And frankly, you can't get any worse than Garrett Bradbury. And that's where this team was 2 years ago, right? So, and frankly, with Ryan Kelly in and out of the lineup, there was a lot of suspect center play this year too. So you can't really get any much worse there. So I'm going to go with Connor Liu and give the Vikings, hopefully, their center of the future. All right, back to the Detroit Lions as we stay in the NFC North. I'm going to go to the cornerback well, and I'm going to go with Julian Neal. Frankly, this team needs to get bigger at corner, right? Like DJ Reed, not a big guy. Terrion Arnold, not the biggest guy. Ennis Rakestraw Jr., not the biggest guy. So, frankly, an infusion of size would go a long way for this team, and Julian Neal is going to bring that to 6'2", 208, and pretty close to verified for both of those. But he's a willing tackler. He's a good player in zone coverage. I worry a little bit about the hip fluidity. I'm curious to see if he runs a 3-cone and what that number is going to be. But on a linear plane, cover 3, cover 0, a lot of size, long arms, and overall good enough athleticism in that realm, playing an alley that I think fits. And also some good man coverage tape, not the world's greatest. Again, I worry about the hips a little bit. That's why he's more of a second-round guy than first-round guy. But, the cornerback room in Detroit still needs work, so I think keep swinging the bat here. All right, we get back to the Carolina Panthers at 51. This round, I have Jake Golday come off the board. I thought about linebacker in the first round for the Panthers, but ultimately I just decided to go Falk over Allen there. But that allows us to then go Jake Golday here at 51. Shrine Bowl guy, solid zone coverage player, pretty good athlete, very good tackler, very good in the run fit. So just kind of an old school thumper linebacker with just enough. And, again, the coverage and the athleticism standpoint that make you think, hey, this could be a 3-down guy. And frankly, for the Panthers, their linebacker coverage play can't get any worse. So, Golday cannot be any worse than what they've already had. We're going to go back to the corner well here for the Green Bay Packers. Julian Neal would have made a lot of sense there, but I'm going to ultimately go with the corner from Florida, and that is Devin Moore. Oh, is Trevor Devin Moore hater? Oh, Trevor. No way he doesn't have Devin Moore. Okay, there we go. 339. Buddy. Yeah, that's got to update. That's got to update. Devin Moore, actually just saw he pulled out of the Senior Bowl. That was one of the names that everyone was talking about last week. Not going to make the Senior Bowl anymore, unfortunately. That sucks big time because I was looking forward to watching him. But big, long, lanky corner with good movement skills. Some of the same stuff I said about Neal, where I'm a little worried about the hips. And frankly, now that I think about it, I probably should have flipped these because I like more than I like Neal. But I like them both. And I'm a little bit worried about the hips and whatnot, but a little bit less so with Moore. So frankly, should have probably flipped those two picks. Both need corners. Both need some size in that room too. So nonetheless, still like the fits for both those teams. Next up, Pittsburgh Steelers at 53. I'm going to go back to the corner well, and I'm going to go with D'Angelo Pons. Just draft good football players. Don't overthink it. Think about the year we've seen from Jacob Parrish. A year last year like Drew Phillips, Trent McDuffie, Devon Witherspoon. There's plenty of other corners I could point to. Marcus Jones, big game this last weekend. These small corners I get dinged because you're slot only, or you're just a little undersized. Just draft good football players, man. Don't overthink it. D'Angelo Pons is exemplary of that. Yes, he's 5'9", 173. We've only heard it in every college game he's ever played, because they always mention it despite how good of a player he is. And you saw in the national championship game, he's a willing combatant as a run defender. So I think this is your slot corner of the future here in Pittsburgh. JPJ, Asante Samuel Jr. on the outside. Pons is your nickel. He's a willing run defender, and he's great in both man and zone. Great eyes, tons of football under his belt. Sprint the card in here. To me, honestly, he's kind of a similar boat as Mikey Sanders still for me. Probably should go top 50. And if somebody does do it in top 50, I'm not knocking it whatsoever. And even with Mikey Sanders still, I saw him as a slot only. He's played a lot of outside corner for Washington. And Pons, again, none of the body for it, but he might be the next Brandon Flowers, where he's just too good to be left only. Granted, I think nickel's the cornerstone of an NFL defense. I have a video on my own channel if you want to hear me go on a diatribe about that. But all I have to say, Pons may even be able to just play outside corner at the next level if you see that as more valuable. Pick 54 belongs to the Philadelphia Eagles. They had Brandon Graham come out of retirement, so I'm just going to give him a big power rusher that I think fits the mold as that replacement. Mesidor is interesting as a guy who could fold inside, but I'm going to go Zion Young. Some people even like him as a first-round guy. I'm not there, but sets a hard edge, plays with no shortage of juice and energy. This guy is absolutely going to be a locker room favorite at the next level, but good power edge rusher who sets a hard edge in the run game. I think this is your Brandon Graham replacement in Philadelphia. Pick 55, the Los Angeles Chargers. This one I have Akeem Mesidor come off the board. A guy who could fold down inside. They've been doing that with Tuli Tuipulotu, but I wonder if Mesidor has a better body for it. But either way you spin it, Tuli, Mesidor is guys who can shrink inside and passing downs. And then we'll see what happens with Khalil Mack if he's back in Los Angeles. Just at the point of his career where he could hang it up at any time. But let's say he does, a pass rush that features Mesidor, Tuli Tuipulotu, and then, I know they drafted Kyle Kennard last year. Okay, I'm feeling a little bit better about that with the addition of Mesidor, who, again, just an absolute pass rush winner. Doesn't do a whole lot of it with power per se, but he is a pretty heavy guy, so I am going to be curious to see where people stand on folding him inside. Because from a weight standpoint, you think, yeah, sure, but doesn't really win with power, but an elite finesse edge rush winner. So I do like that as a future piece there on that defensive line, along with Tuli Tuipulotu, and then hopefully we continue to see Colomac continue to play at a high level. All right, on to pick number 56. The Jacksonville Jaguars have got to overhaul this safety unit. Andrew Wengert, despite having a name that sounds a lot like mine, he always makes me look up at the screen when I hear his name said by the broadcasters because I think someone's talking about me. And then I'm trying to think of the other safety off the top of my head. It's not coming to mind. But anyways, safety was, to me, one of the weaker parts of that defense. And you've got a laundry Halsey, if you like him. I like him. He's a good playmaker. But I'm going to go with Manuel McNeil-Warren, but I'm also a huge Zakee Wheatley fan. Kamari Ramsey, can't go wrong with that selection. Genesis Smith has got his fans. I'm more of a third-round guy for Genesis, but great over-the-top athlete to play single high free safety. I'm going to go with Manuel McNeil-Warren. I think he's got it from a box safety standpoint. He's got athleticism to play over the top. You got the peanut punch down, tight end eraser, running back mismatch. I think there's just a lot of different ways you can use EMW, and I think that's the versatility that the Jaguars could really use. And frankly, it's just a position of need as well. So I like the value there at 56 for Manuel McNeil-Warren. Let's get on to the Chicago Bears here at 57. I know this isn't really the type for Dennis Allen and co, but frankly, they just need more pass rush juice. It's still one of the things that they're looking to figure out. And if it means that R. Mason Thomas is just a DPR, I'm totally fine drafting a high-end DPR in the second round. I have no issues with that whatsoever. I think Nick Bonito has gamed that out, where if you're an elite DPR, second round is not a bad position value or draft expense for that guy. And I think that's exactly what R. Mason Thomas is. Explosive off the line of scrimmage, pretty good arm length, not going to be the world's best run defender. So we are talking DPR here, but the Bears need more pass rush juice. R. Mason Thomas brings it in abundance. Pick number 58. I'm going to go a little off the beaten path. We went offensive line. I'm going to go receiver. I like C.J. Daniels. I like Skylar Pell. He's going to come off the board in just a moment here. And I think Antonio Williams is another guy that's getting a little overlooked now. But I'm going to go with Dejon Stribling. I think from a blocking standpoint, I'm assuming Juwan Jennings is not back in San Francisco. This is about as close as you're going to get to finding a Juwan Jennings replacement in this range. So I like it a ton there. But also, frankly, how Ole Miss used him as a receiver. I mean, it's a lot of RPO routes, so TBD on the route tree. But Ricky Pearsall, I think he does a lot of the in and out breaking stuff. You can find another gadget player later on in this class. Stribling as a guy who's going to bring a ton of blocking and yards after the catch ability, sign me up for that. So again, still TBD on how deep that route tree goes, but run blocking, yards after the catch, and then just a more physical body type than that of Ricky Pearsall's. I like that as a compliment. And look, Ayuk's going to be gone. I think Jennings is gone. Kittle can't play forever. So we're starting to get to the point where some serious need in the pass catching department is going to need to happen. They're going to need to overhaul those weapons sooner rather than later. Pick number 59. Man, I love this selection. So the Texans interior defensive line, right tackle the future. And now I'm just going to give you my RB2, which I think consensus is going to roll back around. And maybe it is Jadarian Price. I'm glad to see Trevor's kind of moved him up to RB2. Price is my RB3, but I think Coleman, specifically the pass catching value he brings, he's a better pass protector than Price, but he's also a better pass catcher than Price right now. So that's why I give him the bump. I think it's a 3-down back of the future here for the Houston Texans. Waiting to see if they're going to bring back Nick Haley, but if it's more gap scheme stuff like it was with Haley this year, Coleman fits it. If they want to get in the zone scheme, Coleman fits it. The only thing that's lacking here is he's not going to run 4.4, 4.40. It's going to be 4.5 probably. Caleb Johnson ran 4.56. I'd say Coleman's probably 4.54 then. I think he's slightly faster than Caleb Johnson, but Johnson to me looked faster on tape than he did in the testing numbers too. So, but lighter on his feet than you would think for 228. 5'9", 228 is my bowling ball build. Ton of contact balance comes from the build itself and the pass catching production he's had at Washington. I think this is a slam dunk pick really at 59 for the Houston Texans. Pick number 60. Speaking of safety, this is where I'm going to have A.J. Halsey come off the board here for the Buffalo Bills, but Zakee Wheatley, Kamari Ramsey, Genesis Smith, you name it. I think they got a hit with Cole Bishop, and I really like him, especially around the line of scrimmage. And now I want to see A.J. Halsey and that playmaking ability. This guy's got a knack for being in the right place at the right time, and not quite to the same extent as Xavier Watts, but it's in the same ilk where it's there's only so many times where you can just say, oh, he happened to be there. Where it's okay, he's always in the right place at the right time. The instincts are working for this guy, and he's just a turnover machine because of that. But also Halsey forced a couple of fumbles this year too, so it's not just the interceptions. This guy's just a natural playmaker. And I still think that other safety spot is something that the Bills need to address long term. I don't think it's Cam Lewis. Bringing back Jordyn Poyer is not the answer either. So I think Hulsey plus Cole Bishop, that could be your 1-2 punch long term in the back end of that Bills defense. I also wouldn't hate if they went Dylan Thielen in round 1. I'll say it. Let's get to the Rams here at 61. This one I'm going to have Skylar Bell come off the board. I wonder if this is just a better version of Tutu Atwell. But also Devontae Adams can't play forever. The Rams don't have too many needs. And I'm not going to go quarterback here at 61. And we've already gone offensive tackle. We've already gone corner. So we've already addressed the big ones for me with the Rams. So I'm just going to go rich gets richer, get another dynamic route runner into an offense that knows how to maximize those sharp route running types. And he's also, I think, going to have enough vertical speed to challenge it. Again, I wonder, I'm not saying he's as fast as Tutu Atwell, but I wonder if he's just a better receiver and just takes the Tutu Atwell role. And plus, in the event of a Devontae Adams injury, you have someone to backfill that spot and can play some solid receiver too for you. All right, 3 more picks. New England Patriots. They've got Morgan Moses right now playing right tackle, but I'm going to give them a developmental piece there. Did not mean to hit running back, but I'm going to go with Max Heneshore, the right tackle from Arizona State. Really good athlete, new player to the sport, and they don't have to play him right away. I think Morgan Moses is still playing good football. You could start Morgan Moses next year and then turn it over to a Heneshore. You could play, Moses signed a 3-year deal with New England, if my memory serves, so you can start Moses 2 more years for all I care and then turn it over to a Heneshore. But newer guy to the sport. And I think the learning curve, this guy's picking it up pretty quick, and he's a really good athlete, NFL starting level athlete. So I think give him a couple of years of coaching, specifically with a guy like Morgan Moses, who just has the refinement down, could be a perfect landing spot for him, and it could be the perfect passing of the torch that the Patriots need on the right side of the offensive line. All right, for the Denver Broncos, I am going to go to the tight end well here. Max Clare's a really interesting option. Eli Stowers could be the Joker type. Andrews is fun. I feel like Andrews is a little forgotten about in this class. I don't think it's going to be Michael Trigg. Justin Jolie is like kind of the one I want to go with here. Yeah, screw it. I'm going to go Justin Jolie. And I initially had written down Max Clare, and you could have definitely gone with Clare. You could have definitely gone with Stowers. I know Stowers can have a lot of his fans, but I'm going to go with Justin Jolie. I just think he's a really nice receiving tight end. He just does so much of the little things right. Consistently makes contested grabs over the middle of the field and in the red zone. Gets out of a stance, gets vertical really quickly. Solid route runner. Not the world's biggest route tree from a tight end. It's more vertical and then kind of like off of it, kind of your hitches and your out routes, just keeping a defender honest, just off the vertical tree. But man, I think his pass catching ability, like what they wanted Evan Ingram to be, I think Justin Jolie, could definitely be that type of guy. So I'm going to go with Jolie there. And that does make him tight end too. I know that might be a little bold for some people. All right, then we get to the Seattle Seahawks. I know Caleb Banks here. I'm just not a Caleb Banks guy. I'm also not a dude. I'll be honest. I'm not a big Jennings Dunker guy either. So I was going to go just best interior offensive line. What I had written down is Carter Smith, but as of the national championship game, he made it known that he's going to go back to school. So I'm going to go with Brian Parker II, and we're going to have Brian Parker II be our center of the future. And he's kind of a center. Sorry. I wish I went guard there now that I think about it. Because I think Sullen can be fine at center. It's more Anthony Bradford at right guard I'm looking to move on from. So sorry, Seattle fans. I probably rushed that a little too fast. I should have probably gone guard there. But nevertheless, let me know what you think about the idea of getting a new center. And I do think Brian Parker II is one of the best center options in this class. And I do think he could be an upgrade over Jacob Sullen sooner rather than later. But guys, here's all 64 picks. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Who went too high? Who went too low? Who's your squad? And what did you think of the haul I gave your team? Love to hear those thoughts in the comments and replying back to this on X. But of course, I'd love to hear this in our Discord. Again, great time to go join and become a subscriber over at our website, 32beatwriters.com. Join now for free. Get all my Senior Bowl coverage and Z's Senior Bowl coverage next week for free. And then we'll roll into the offseason. We're going to keep you up to date on all these coaching hires, coordinator hires, player trades, and of course, everything I'm doing for the NFL draft will be on 32beatwriters.com as well as our YouTube channel. So subscribe to both the website and our YouTube channel, please, if you haven't already. But guys, that is going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Hope you guys enjoyed the mock. And until next time, I am signing off.